friends. Kathy Lanzalaco here. Welcome to another episode of Inspired Career Spotlight on Careers, the video podcast series where I bring you best-in-class information from all over the career management space to keep you up to date and help you manage your careers. And today, I am going to share the top 7 lies you are probably telling yourself about your career and why it's hurting you. So let's get right into it. The first one I hear all the time, and I think it's important to understand why we're talking about this because these are harmful, right? Lies. Every lie we tell ourselves or we tell another is harmful because it's not the truth. And one might say, well, truth is perspective, but the truth is constant. And so we want to make sure that we're controlling our information as best we can to ourselves so we give ourselves the best opportunity to succeed. So the first one I hear all the time is, I don't have a really great resume and I didn't take the time to do it well because I thought my work would speak for itself. No, your work does not speak for itself. Your work does not have a voice. And as much as you think it should speak for itself, it doesn't. That is really an old-fashioned saying that comes from years and years ago when maybe your work did speak for itself. Maybe my father's work spoke for itself, but that is not how it works today. You have to speak for yourself. You have to own your career. You have to advocate for yourself. Your work is not going to do it. Unfortunately, that's not how it happens. And you think that your boss should be responsible for noticing what you do. And yes, they should be. But by the same token, they have a lot of people to watch out for. They are watching out for themselves as well. And your career is your responsibility. Regardless of how wonderful your boss is or how lousy your boss is, your job, your responsibility is always your career and to manage it no matter what is happening around you. So to say my work will speak for itself is leaving the power in someone else's hands. And that does not mean you brag. That does not mean that you inflate what you're doing. That is not any of those things. And it doesn't mean that you're constantly running into your boss's office to say, hey, look at me, look what I've done. What that means is you should be keeping a careful record of everything that you are doing. I am disappointed and shocked and sorry for people when I work with people to get into their career management work only to find out that they struggle to quantify their accomplishments and they can't come up with metrics and they can't come up with dates and they can't come up, to really tell me important things that would be very powerful if we could put some more construct behind it. And that doesn't mean every little detail, but it means you really have to keep track of what's happening. Save those performance appraisals. Keep a separate brag book, if you will, or a performance folder that's not at work, that's separate from work, so that if you're not at work one day or you're not there tomorrow, you have access to that information all the time, and it's information that you control. So it's really important. Not allowing yourself to have access to your information is another thing I see all the time. Well, I don't have that. I didn't leave it that. You got to always be thinking about yourself in that regard. I don't mean taking company information, let's be clear, but stuff that belongs to you, of course. So keeping track of your information, making sure that when performance time comes around, that you are filling out those self-appraisals well, and you're taking the time to do it. And if you don't have a self-appraisal, ask your boss for one. And if they don't have any formal mechanism for performance appraisals, get in front of your boss and talk through it. And advocate with HR, try to get one. But if not, make sure that you get FaceTime with your boss to talk through it with them on a consistent basis so that your boss is constantly knowing what you're doing and aware of your accomplishments and how they are impacting the bottom line, how they are impacting your customers or your clients. So that is your responsibility. But to say my work speaks for itself is only going to hurt you in the end over and over again. All right, lie number 2 is, and I speak from this because I am in that category of I'm too old, and I hear it all the time. What is too old anymore? Where is the age where ageism, age discrimination, and I don't mean according to the law, but I mean according to people's subjective thoughts, where does ageism or being too old kind of start? Well, I don't know. I've heard people say they start kind of feeling it in the workplace as old as, or as young, maybe I should say it that way, is like 38 or 40. And I think maybe the sweet spot, if I had to say from where I talk to my clients and from what I see in the workplaces and talking to employers and to recruiters, is probably that sweet spot is anywhere from, say, mid-30s to mid-40s. But that's a generalization because some employers will absolutely love their employees that are in their 50s, respect that experience, and love it. And they love the years that they've been with them. However, what I'm talking about here is really how we talk to ourselves and saying, I'm too old to do this, I'm too old to do that. And when you say those things to yourself or you think about that, sometimes what happens is you put your career in a stall, meaning you stop really managing your career well. You stop going over or going after those things that you really want in your career. And you say, well, I'll just kind of ride it out. And you might only be 45 years old at that point, or 50 or 55. And listen, we tend to be working later now, later into our later years. So how long are you going to kind of coast on that? Because you think you're already too old. Well, you know what? Sometimes the comfort level sneaks up on us and we're just like, you know what? I'm kind of tired too. Well, yeah, I get that. And I do. I understand that. And everybody's got to make their own decisions. But if you're deliberately not doing things because you're telling yourself, I can't have what I want because I'm too old, you got to get that out of your head. And it really is a state of mind. It is a mindset. And I will tell you that it's not just about, well, how I view myself. And I think, well, maybe the employers see me as too old. It's also kind of reflected in how you take care of yourself. So I'm going to just be honest with you. I see that I don't hear that kind of language from people that take excellent care of themselves, people that are out there at the gym running marathons or, you don't have to be doing that, but people that take great care of themselves, have great self-care practices. And self-care can be anything from going to the gym to eating well, to getting enough sleep, to putting good boundaries emotionally around yourself. So there's a lot of ways to exercise great self-care. But saying I'm too old and pulling the reins back on your career damages you because you're not maximizing out your experience that you could really be having, the contributions you could be making, the money you could be making. Let's talk about that, right? You're not earning your full potential. And you do probably have more that you can be giving and more that you can be receiving. But if you're cutting yourself off at a particularly younger age because you feel you're too old and the opportunities aren't out there, you're lying to yourself because they are out there. They truly are. In some instances, may they be a little harder to get? Maybe, but then maybe you're targeting the wrong employer too. And that's a whole other conversation about age discrimination and targeting employers to really learn their culture and find out if it's a good fit for you and what employers really value people with longevity. So, definitely that's something that you should consider when you're managing your career. But when you say, I'm too old to change, I'm too old to make a move, I'm too old to do something new, I'm too old to learn that. I hear that all the time. That's kind of language has to go because you're just damaging yourself. It doesn't hurt anybody but you. And let me tell you something else too. It comes out in your body language. Somehow those things always get back to your employer in terms of just the energy you carry, right? And when it comes time for promotions or stretch opportunities or that big break, whatever it might be, or the downside of that is when it's time to start, thinning the herd, maybe you may be in the wrong pile for either one. So you just got to get that mind where it needs to be. What is that saying now? 50 is the new 40, 40 is the new 30, all these kind of things. And I kind of believe that it really is truly however old you feel you are. But your skills have to keep up with it because that's really why discrimination in employment takes place. Not because they care about your age, but they associate things with your age, that you don't know the technologies, that you can't get along with younger generations, that you're going to be difficult to work with, a lot of different assumptions that people make. So if you don't think like that, then you can break down those stereotypes too, and you can open yourself to a lot of other opportunities and advantages. All right. Number 3, the opposite of that is I'm too young. And I say this because I work with a lot of young people. And what they do, though, they don't say I'm too young. What they say, the language I hear them use is kind of more of a victim mentality too, is that nobody wants to hire me because I don't have experience. Yes, I get that. And that's not necessarily untrue. But by the same token, what happens is every time they say that to themselves, I see them pulling back further from their applications, from their networking opportunities. And I just saw on LinkedIn, and one of my colleagues had shared it with me as well, that the National Association of Colleges and Employers had just shared that the past several years and in 2025, the hiring rate for college graduates is going down. It is harder for a college graduate to get a job. So if you go into a job search with the mentality of, I am too young, I don't have experience, it is going to be harder for you, right? Now, if you're already in the workplace and you've already started working, to come into an opportunity, you've got the job, but to be thinking, well, I can't go after that promotion because I'm too young. Oh, no, no. Sometimes I recognize that employers can discriminate against you if you really are fabulous and a high performer and you're just killing it out there. And they don't want to promote you because they do think you need to pay your dues, right? We've all heard that. However, it's up to you to knock down those stereotypes, just like for the older folks, by not using that kind of language, by making sure that you are presenting yourself with more of that executive presence. And that doesn't mean you have to carry the title of executive. It means you have to show up in that way, that professional presence, right? And the executive presence is made up of communication, how you look, and that gravitas, right? So it is about that way that you carry yourself, the way that you're able to communicate, and that feeling that you give off, and the way that people feel when they're around you too, and that credibility that gains for you. And that is a learned skill, and some of that does come with maturity. However, when you can keep telling yourself, I'm too young, you're fighting yourself against that tide. So that requires practice. Read up on it, get books on it, watch podcasts on it, watch videos on it, and take a course on it too. There's a lot of great information out there. Sometimes young people pay so much attention to their skill development, their hard skill development, not a bad thing, but they tend to forget the soft skill development. Or, as I have heard them reference more lately, because of AI, power skills. So soft skills, yes, but really those human power skills. So paying more attention to that is going to get you a lot further as you continue to mature. But as you are young still, and I'm talking about like the 35 and under crowd, it does take some conscious effort to put yourself in that place where you can be seen as more of a seasoned professional, if you will. All right, lie number 4 I hear people say is, I can't do anything different. I've done this forever. Or I can't pivot. I can't change, right? Yes, you can. These careers that we have, they don't have to be linear forever unless you choose to make them that way. And I tell the story all the time. I started out as a registered nurse. Then I went and worked to HR for many years. And now I'm running this career management firm. So there's a lot of different things that you can do. You don't have to do anything different if you don't want to. But to tell yourself you can't is a lie that you tell yourself, and you're limiting yourself. Now, think about that. It doesn't necessarily have to be a huge career shift that you make. It could just be an opportunity that you take on. It could be a volunteer opportunity that you take on, or that you deny yourself because you're using that kind of a language. And maybe that just opens up the door to new social contacts or other ways of career advancement because you're gaining different skills like leadership or governance experience. Who knows? So when you say those kind of things, I can't do anything different. This is what I do, and I stay in this narrow lane. You have to think more broadly about your transferable skills. You really can do a lot of different things. And the problem does come in, though, and I will just kind of caution here. People come to me all the time and say, look, I'm tired of what I'm doing. I want to do something different. This is what I want to do, or I don't know what I want to do. But when we talk about what they want to do, or we can identify what they want to do, sometimes there is a step in between, or there is upskilling or training that has to happen. It may not just be a clear, I'm here today and I can go there tomorrow. Some things have to happen in between. And I think that's where people get really caught up. I don't really think it's that people don't think they can do anything different. I think subconsciously, or they thought ahead and say, I don't want to do the work to do that. And that's okay if you don't want to, but don't tell yourself you can't and deny yourself the opportunities that you could have. I can't versus I don't want to is completely different. So just, make sure that you're really clear about your language. All right, line number 5. I am loyal, therefore my employer will take care of me. Oh, well, let's talk about loyal for a second, shall we? Because this is a lie just covered in all kinds of sauce. And I tell my clients all the time, the definition of loyal is not what the definition of loyal used to be 20 years ago, 30, 40 years ago. Loyalty in my father's time was you got a job out of high school or college and you stayed with that employer forever. And you expected them to take care of you. They expected you to stay, and that was your relationship. Well, that is not loyalty anymore. And the statistics are clear that people have had more jobs, over time. And the latest indication I saw, the latest data that I had seen was that the college graduates of this era, Gen Z, that I'm talking about, are going to have between 11 and 15 jobs. Now, you could read something different that I've seen something else that said 8 to 11. Whatever. Think about those. Let's use an average of 10. 10, right? So when you think about that, where is the loyalty in terms of longevity? You can't define loyalty by longevity anymore. In my opinion, and this is what I share with my clients, and I believe this is a good, firm definition of loyalty. Loyalty is giving good time to your employer, meaning you do your work when you're supposed to be doing your work, whether you're in the office or whether you're working from home or a hybrid opportunity, whatever. You don't badmouth your employer behind their back. You don't be any subversive activities. It's those type of things that are about being loyal, right? You don't behave in a manner that is disrespectful to your employer. That's loyalty. Staying with them forever is not loyalty. Being honest with them about your career aspirations is the right thing to do. But by the same token, you don't owe them every single thought you've ever had because they don't tell you everything either. So there is a balance there. Complete transparency doesn't exist. Don't pretend it does. So, I'm not suggesting that you're lying to your employer when they say, what do you want to do with yourself? But by the same token, you don't have to tell them every single thing and say, I'm out looking for a job tomorrow. You don't. I used to have a boss 20 years ago. I had a boss who said that, told all of us, we should be interviewing 4 times a year just to see what's out there, just to keep our interview skills sharp. He did it and he said we should. I share that with you now to say that's not being disloyal, just to kind of test the market and see what's out there. You never know, because tomorrow your employer would let you go if it was in their best interest. You owe yourself to know what's happening out in the market. That doesn't mean that you go shooting that information off to everybody and telling everybody how much you hate your employer. That is not loyalty, right? But to understand what's happening out there, to keep looking, to keep your resume updated, to be on LinkedIn, developing relationships, to go to networking events, that is good career management practice. That is good professional hygiene. And that you should be doing all the time because that is your responsibility. And as long as when you are being paid by your employer, and I don't mean even when you're home, because when you're off the clock, you still shouldn't be bad-mouthing your employer, out at the bar and those kind of things. So just put that into perspective about that new definition of loyalty, because there is no loyalty. They have no loyalty to you. And that doesn't mean, again, that you go stealing and, being a jerk employee. But it just kind of levels the playing field to say, they're taking care of the company. I'm taking care of myself. While I'm on the clock, I'm certainly taking care of our customers, and I am working with the best interest of the company in mind. But at the end of the day, I have to take care of my family, right? So that's all. That's just the new definition of loyalty. Does not mean that you stay there forever, because if you think that, you're going to be sorely mistaken. People are getting disillusioned all the time. You're there 20 years, they will still cut you. Doesn't really matter. Doesn't matter how much you give. Doesn't matter if you give every weekend, you work extra. It doesn't matter in the end. It's business. It's not personal. So remember that. All right. Line number 6. If AI becomes important to my job, my employer will teach me. Well, and I encourage you to just pause a minute and think about AI and think about how you're using it or if you're using it in your current job. If you did not see my previous podcast on AI, and I hate the term AI proofing your career. I don't like that, and I tried not to use that during that podcast. But talking about ways to prevent AI from, to make yourself more competitive, to prevent AI from sneaking up on you and taking your job. But this is a lie you tell yourself, well, I wait for my employer to let me know. Or if I'm not using it now, it probably isn't important. Or the other language I've heard is, it's really important in tech, or it's important in finance. It's not important in my job. It's important in every job, every single job. Hear that again. Every single job. I don't care what job you do. AI is here, folks. It's not coming. It's here. It's here, and it's here to stay. And it's here, and it's accelerating at a speed we never imagined. So to wait for your employer to give you a private invitation to learn how to use it and how to become proficient at it in your field is really putting yourself behind the eight ball. So to tell yourself, they'll let me know, is a huge lie. You are placing yourself at a major disadvantage. It is up to you to try to figure that out. And even if your employer isn't using it because they haven't figured out compliance yet or security or whatever it is around that, you still should know what's happening out there. Because if you don't, that next job that you may need may require it, and you will lose that job to someone else that knows the kind of tools they need or that has that mindset about AI and they're using it to automate tasks and to save time and to save money. You have to be someone that can accept it and talk about it and to be able to at least use it for some type of functions. And again, everyone's got different speeds. Everyone's a little different. However, to just sit back and let your employer run loose with that and just kind of wait for them to tell you what you need to know, it's completely not fair to yourself. And you're kidding yourself if you think that's going to keep you competitive. So ask for the training. Ask them for the training. And if they don't give it to you, go get it yourself. I cannot tell you the amount of people that say to me, well, I know I should go back for maybe it's a degree, an advanced degree, or additional training. And they say, well, my employer's not paying for it, so it's really expensive. I can't do it right now. I don't want to do it. I'm going to wait for my employer to do it. Now, listen, everybody's got their own decisions to make. Everyone has their own budget. Everyone knows their personal circumstances, and there's always somebody who can't afford it. However, if you want it bad enough, you'll figure it out. And you go to your employer first, of course, but sometimes they're not going to do it for you. And it is choices you have to make. The opportunity costs money, right? You got a choices that you have to make, and you have to decide in your long-term career management where some of the stuff fits. You have to determine what's more important than something else. And to wait for your employer to pay for it, you're again giving away your power. And in the end, sometimes that's not a good strategy either, because even if they pay for it, you may not get the right training, you may not get the best training, you may not get it quick enough. So you should stay in control of that information. Do not let your employer do that. All right, number 7, no one hires during the holidays or during the summer. Lie, all over the place. Where do I begin? And I hear this all the time. Listen, folks, if you believe that, you are missing out on opportunities and losing a chance for yourself to be open to other opportunities that are out there, that because you said, oh, nobody's hiring out there, and you've turned a blind eye. So for instance, I hear that all the time, holiday time. Well, nobody hires during the holidays. Everybody's out of the office, or taking extended vacations during summer. Well, of course, people are taking time off. We know that. And is it probably quiet Christmas week? Sure it is. Yes, of course. And during the holidays, yes. Are people maybe a little more distracted? You got holiday parties going on? Yeah. But the truth is, employers are still hiring. They're getting their teams in line for the beginning of the new year. And those that have to finish out those budgets and use those budget dollars, they want to get everything done before the end of the year. A lot of times there's a huge push before some of that money can be lost. So to just put a blanket statement that people aren't hiring and say, I ain't doing nothing, if you don't want to look for a job, then don't. But if you're really active and you really want to look for a job, that is not the time to pull back. I will tell you, it's the time to push forward, because that is the time that many people do push back. So there's less competition in the market at that point. That's exactly when you should lean in. So summer's a great time to find a job, and so are the holiday time. Absolutely. Don't let that get into your brain and say, oh no, I can only look for a job January and February. Are you kidding? Now, hiring is the highest in the first 3 months of the year. Statistics are clear about that. However, competition is also the greatest. It's like January at the gym. Ever try to get on a machine? That's kind of what it's like trying to get through to get a job in January too. It's harder. So yeah, there's hiring is happening, but you're in a huge pool of people too. So, just don't limit yourself to the different times of year. Hiring is happening all year long, folks, all year long. And just keep that at open mind. You choose your schedule about when you want to do it, but just be aware of, telling yourself stuff like that just because you say it, it isn't true. It isn't true. All right, I'm going to give you a bonus one here, because this is entitled The Top 7 Reasons, or the top 7 lies that you tell yourself about your career. And I'm going to give you a bonus one, number 8, okay? Because I hear this all the time, and I don't want you to continue to tell yourself this. The other lie I hear people say is, I don't like social media, so it's okay that I am not on LinkedIn. Now, they don't say all that, right? What they say is, I don't like social media. And that unravels the lie of, that's why I'm not on LinkedIn. Well, that's your lie that you're telling yourself. And I'm sure you don't like social media, but it's not okay that you're not on LinkedIn. Okay. And I'm telling you that because I have really noticed, in particular this past year, more than ever, for the almost decade I've been doing this work, that there is a direct correlation between people that are active on LinkedIn, actively networking, actively posting on LinkedIn, and how fast their job search goes. Quote me on that, write it down. And I can validate that through data as well. You can validate that. Just go to LinkedIn News, go to the LinkedIn editorials and the reports. They'll tell you that too. But I can tell you that just from talking to my clients. And the reason for that is because every time you're on LinkedIn and you're posting, you're engaging, you're connecting, you're sharing, you are visible, you are more visible to your network, to recruiters, to employers. And every time you're posting on LinkedIn, consider it like an informal job interview. Recruiters can see every single thing you post. Your network can see everything you post. That doesn't mean every single person, every time. We know how these algorithms work, right? But when people say to me, I've exhausted my network, I know, Kathy, I know everybody, the way people get jobs are through networking, but I'm calling people, nobody's calling me back. It's not working. I get it. And it's frustrating. But these are also the people that aren't on LinkedIn. That's the first thing I do then is I go to LinkedIn and I see what their activity is. And invariably, they're not working it. And when I say working it, I don't mean becoming an influencer. That is not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about having a presence. I'm talking about after you get your profile updated to use it because your profile's gone stale. And after you make that call to your network, hey, Joe, I need a job, blah, blah. Can you help me? Oh, it's good to talk to you. After you hang up the phone, even though Joe's a great friend, Joe's got his own life. And Joe's moved on then because Joe's got his own problems at work. Joe's got his own family. Maybe Joe's looking for a job. Joe's got stuff going on. So you're not necessarily the first thing on Joe's mind. But when you're posting on LinkedIn and Joe's on there, Joe will see you coming through his news feed. Subconsciously now you remain in his, you're consciously coming up subconsciously and consciously, always repeating, always there, always coming back. So now it's easier for Joe to keep you in mind. So use the tools available to you. There are tools that you can use to schedule posts ahead of time. LinkedIn has that built-in functionality. You can schedule posts 3 months ahead of time. So you can develop a content strategy, and then you can help use LinkedIn to schedule your posts ahead of time so that you don't have to babysit it and be on there every single day. However, that doesn't mean that you should just use AI, press the button and let AI deal with your posts and you're not even engaged with them. That's not what I'm talking about. But people that are not on LinkedIn because I don't like social media, you're hurting yourself. I cannot tell you how strongly I feel about this. And I tell my clients this, and I hate to use the word lecture, but I kind of feel sometimes like I'm lecturing them, badgering them about it. I keep saying it over and over again. Just a presence, just getting more comfortable with it. This isn't having to post all your family photos, and this isn't about, opening the curtain and telling everything about you, but it is just sharing information that helping others, sharing the posts of others, commenting on the posts of others, just being engaged professionally. That's all it is. And not to do that is to limit your opportunities. Again, that it's that common statement that I hear all the time of, well, I don't like social media, so I'm not doing it. And for some reason, people think that's the blanket statement that nobody's going to, challenge them on. Well, keep talking to yourself that way, and you keep denying yourself opportunities to get in front of your network and get somebody to notice you. So it's costing you a lot more than you realize. So yeah, you heard it again. And if you're my client, you've heard it from me. Now you've heard it, I don't know how many times. So there you have it. All right. So those are the 7 lies plus the bonus lie that you're telling yourself that hurt your careers. Listen, if you have another lie that you think you're telling yourself and you want to talk about it, shoot me a private DM. We can talk about that. But I'd like to hear other things that maybe you've realized that over time, that maybe you've stopped saying to yourself lies, that you've said, Kathy, I have learned this over time and now I don't do it. And in fact, I tell the people that I mentor not to do it. I'd love that because I could use that in another podcast. I'd love to hear from you about what you've learned over time and lessons and lies you've stopped telling yourself. But these are critical ones. And please remember that it is your responsibility to take full control over your career. Nobody's going to do it for you. And the more that we disguise the truth to ourselves or we fight for our own limitations, we're only hurting ourselves. And in this new world of AI, where there's always going to be somebody else and something else that can do more and they can do things faster, our ability to be as human as possible and to be as connected as possible has never been more important. And so all of these lies that I'm talking about, they all have that thread coming in between them too. So really think about it. You owe yourself more than that. You owe yourself the truth. You owe yourself opportunity to be all that you can be. And if you don't want more, that's fine too. Maybe you don't want more today and you do tomorrow. But in often cases, what you do today impacts tomorrow. So just think about it that way too. So I'm going to leave you with that thought. But before you go, please make sure that you subscribe to our channel so that as we drop new information, you get access to that. I have some really great stuff coming up. I mentioned it last month. I have a series coming up. I'm so excited to share it with you. We're going to delve more into some financial advice for people that are shifting careers, really critical pieces because I've heard from my clients that they need more help with that kind of stuff. So stay tuned. We're coming up with some really great partners that I'm going to be having on the podcast within the next couple of episodes. So I look forward to sharing that with you. And until we meet again, live inspired.